I didn't know there was a rule about leaving before morning. No sign mentioned it. No one explained it, and that was the problem. I was driving through the mountains late in the afternoon, following a route that had slowly climbed higher than I expected. The trees grew thicker the farther I went, and the temperature dropped in a way that felt sudden, like someone had flipped a switch. My phone lost signal without warning. One bar, then nothing. I wasn't lost, but I also wasn't sure how far the next town was. That's when I saw the sign. Two wooden posts stood just off the road, holding up a single board. The paint was faded and uneven, like it had been touched up too many times over the years. It said only one word: Lodge. No name, no distance, no arrow. I slowed down, passed it, then stopped the car completely. I sat there for a few seconds, engine idling, trying to decide if I really needed to stop. I could probably keep driving, maybe find a gas station, maybe find signal again. But the sun was already low, slipping behind the ridgeline, and the road ahead disappeared into shadows faster than I liked. I turned around. The road leading to the lodge was narrow but well maintained. No potholes, no fallen branches. That detail stuck with me later. Someone was taking care of it. The lodge sat in a shallow clearing surrounded by tall trees. It was bigger than I expected. 3 floors, wide windows, warm yellow light glowing from inside. From a distance, it looked welcoming in a quiet, unadvertised way, like it didn't need to convince anyone to stop there. I parked near the entrance and stepped out of the car. The air was cold and completely still. No wind, no insects, no distant sound of traffic, just silence and the faint hum of the building. Inside, the lobby smelled like old wood and cleaning solution. The space was simple but clean. A long wooden desk ran along one wall, polished smooth from years of use. A small bell sat on top. Behind the desk were rows of wooden cubbies with brass number plates. Keys, I assumed. I rang the bell once. Nothing happened. I rang it again, louder this time. After a moment, a door behind the desk opened and a man stepped out. He looked to be in his late 40s, gray starting to show at the sides of his hair. Clean clothes, calm posture. His expression didn't change when he saw me. "Evening," he said. His voice was steady, neutral, not friendly, not unfriendly. I asked if they had any rooms available. He nodded immediately. "Yes," he said. "Just for tonight?" The question caught me slightly off guard, not because it was strange, but because of how certain he sounded, like he already knew the answer. I told him yes, just one night. He reached into one of the cubbies and slid a key across the desk toward me, a simple metal key attached to a wooden tag. 214. "No breakfast," he said, as if reading from a list. "Checkout is before morning." I let out a small laugh, thinking it was a joke, or maybe a quirky way of saying early checkout. "Before morning?" I asked. He didn't smile. "Yes," he said again. There was a pause. Not awkward, intentional. I nodded, unsure why my chest suddenly felt tight. I took the key and thanked him. He didn't respond, already turning back toward the door he came from. The staircase to the second floor was to the left of the desk. As I climbed, the sounds of my footsteps seemed louder than they should have been. The building absorbed noise in a way that felt unnatural. The hallway on the second floor was long and softly lit. The carpet was clean and thick, muting every step. Every door was closed. No sounds, no televisions, no voices. No indication that anyone else was staying there. 214 was at the far end of the hall. Inside, the room was simple and spotless. The bed was neatly made. The desk was clear. The curtains were half drawn, letting in the last traces of daylight. Nothing felt personal. Nothing felt used. I dropped my bag near the bed and sat down, finally allowing myself to relax. That's when I noticed the clock on the nightstand. It read 5:42 p.m. I checked my phone. 6:19 p.m. I frowned, assuming the clock was wrong. Old building, old clocks. It didn't seem important at the time. That was the first thing I ignored, and it wouldn't be the last.
I went back downstairs a little later, around what my phone said was 7:30. The lobby looked the same as before. Quiet, clean, still. No new sounds, no new movement. It was like the building reset itself when I wasn't looking. A doorway beside the desk led into the dining area. Long wooden tables, simple chairs. No decorations, no windows. Just warm overhead lights and the smell of food that had been sitting out for a while. There was a chalkboard mounted near the entrance. 3 items written neatly in white chalk. Stew, bread, tea. No prices, no options. I sat at one of the tables, expecting someone to come out eventually. I didn't have to wait long. The same man from the desk appeared, carrying a tray. He set the bowl in front of me, placed the bread beside it, and poured tea into a cup without asking how I wanted it. I thanked him. He nodded once. The stew tasted fine. Not good, not bad. Warm and filling, like it was designed to do one thing and nothing more. I ate slowly, listening for any sign that I wasn't alone in the building. There was nothing. I tried to make conversation, asked how long the lodge had been there. Long enough, he said. I asked if many people stayed there during this season. Some, he replied. Every answer felt complete, like adding more words would break a rule I didn't know about. Eventually, I stopped asking. When I finished eating, the overhead lights dimmed slightly. Not enough to notice immediately, but enough to feel. The man was suddenly standing beside the table. "That's your signal," he said. "For what?" I asked. "For night. Not evening. Not late. Night." I went back upstairs. The hallway looked the same as before, but something about it felt tighter, like the space had subtly narrowed. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. The room felt colder than it had earlier. I closed the curtains completely and lay down on the bed, telling myself I was overthinking everything. Sleep didn't come easily, not because of noise, because of the lack of it. There were no footsteps, no doors opening or closing, no pipes knocking in the walls. Even the building settling into the cold night was silent. It felt like the lodge was actively suppressing sound. At some point, I woke up. The room was dark, but my eyes adjusted quickly. I checked the clock on the nightstand. 3:11 a.m. I reached for my phone. 2:47 a.m. I stared at both screens longer than I should have. I told myself one of them was wrong. Probably the clock. Old building, cheap electronics. I turned over and tried to sleep again. That's when I started dreaming. I was walking down the second-floor hallway. The carpet absorbed my footsteps completely. The doors were closed as before, identical and evenly spaced. The lights above me began turning off, one by one, starting from the far end. Not behind me. Ahead. Each time a light went out, the darkness moved closer, forcing me forward. I tried to turn around, but the hallway stretched longer instead. Endless. Narrow. Silent. I woke up suddenly. The room was darker than before. Not night dark. Something else. I reached for my phone. 6:09 a.m. That didn't make sense. The room should have been filling with light. Morning always arrived earlier in the mountains, but the windows were completely black. I sat up, heart pounding for reasons I couldn't fully explain. Then it happened. At 6:12 a.m., every light in the building turned off at the same time. No flicker, no warning, just darkness. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It felt intentional, like the building was waiting to see what I would do next. I stood up slowly and opened the door. The hallway was pitch black. No emergency lights, no exit signs. Nothing. I stepped out, keeping one hand against the wall as I moved toward the stairs. The air felt heavier, colder, like the temperature had dropped all at once. Halfway down the hall, my foot brushed against something that shouldn't have been there. I stopped and reached out. The wall was smooth. Too smooth. I moved my hand to where my neighbor's door should have been. There was nothing there. No doorframe, no handle, no gap, just solid wall. I felt panic rise in my throat as I moved farther down the hallway, checking where every door had been. They were all gone. Not open, not locked. Gone. That's when I started running. I stayed in the car for a long time after driving away. The road felt normal again. Too normal. The trees passed by at a steady pace, the tires hummed against the asphalt, and the sky slowly brightened the way mornings always do. That should have comforted me. It didn't. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the lodge standing behind me where the road curved. But there was nothing. just empty mountain road and fog drifting low between the trees. When I finally stopped at a small gas station an hour later, the attendant asked if I was okay. He said I looked pale. I told him I hadn't slept well. That was true, but not enough. While filling up, I checked my phone again. The time was normal. The date was correct. There were missed notifications from earlier in the night, messages that had never come through while I was at the lodge. That bothered me more than anything else. It meant time hadn't stopped. Whatever happened there had fit perfectly inside the real world. I drove home and tried to forget about it. For a while, I almost succeeded. Weeks passed, then months. The memory dulled around the edges, like something I'd imagined during exhaustion. I told the story once, casually, to a friend. He laughed and said it sounded like a bad horror movie. I agreed and never brought it up again. But small things started happening. I began waking up before sunrise without an alarm, always between 6:10 and 6:20 a.m., no matter what time I went to bed. When I checked the clock, it was always within that window. Sometimes I would wake up already standing. Once, I found myself in the hallway outside my bedroom, hand resting against the wall, breathing hard like I'd been running. I had no memory of getting there. That's when I started hearing the silence again. Not actual silence, structured silence, the kind that feels deliberate. It happened in quiet places, empty stairwells, late-night parking garages, hotel hallways when everyone else was asleep. The sound would fade, not gradually, but all at once, leaving behind a pressure in the air that made my ears ring. Every time my heart would race, and I'd feel the urge to leave immediately. I learned to listen to that instinct. About a year later, I was traveling again for work. Different state, different mountain range, different season. I booked a hotel near the highway, nothing remote, nothing old. I checked in late. The clerk handed me my key and said, "Checkout is before morning." He froze after saying it. His eyes widened slightly, like he hadn't meant to say that. He cleared his throat and corrected himself quickly. "I mean, checkout's at 11. I didn't stay. I left my key on the desk and walked out without explaining. I drove until sunrise and slept in my car at a rest stop, lights on, radio playing quietly so the silence couldn't settle. I started noticing patterns after that. Whenever I saw places described as quiet, secluded, or peaceful, I avoided them. Whenever someone mentioned a lodge, a retreat, or a place off the road, I felt that tightness in my chest again. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I searched online. I didn't look for the lodge by name. I didn't have one. Instead, I searched for phrases. Guests must leave before morning. Mountain lodge disappeared. Hotel with no doors at night. I didn't find articles. I found posts, buried forum threads, old comment sections, archived travel warnings that didn't explain anything directly. People describing places that felt wrong, places where time slipped, places where the rules were never written down. One post stood out, a single paragraph written years ago by someone whose account no longer existed. If they tell you to leave before morning, they're not warning you. They're reminding the building. Morning is when it decides who belongs. I closed my laptop after that. I haven't traveled into the mountains since. But sometimes, just before sunrise, I wake up and hear footsteps in my apartment hallway. Slow, measured, not approaching, just pacing, like something checking boundaries. The sound always stops at 6:19 a.m. I don't open my door anymore, because I know now, some places don't trap you forever. They just remember you, and they wait.